and ready to be.
Remember those days in college?
Yeah.
10 minutes.
That's right.
So we'll call this meeting of the Capital Program Committee to order Thursday, November 15th, 11:15 a.m. We are being audio-video recorded. There's no members of the public here for comments. And we are here today to review. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st and November 8th?
So moved. I just have an adjustment.
Yep.
November 1st shows I was here, but I was not. I was absent at that meeting.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to hold, then we'll hold the minutes and we'll have it corrected and we'll approve it the next. So the motion could be modified to hold for further review of amendments.
So moved.
Excellent. Okay, that carries unanimously. We are going to be discussing, good morning, Rob, welcome, the DPW's outstanding items. And with that, the floor is yours.
We updated a number of missing items, and I have a couple more to add to the list as they were coming in. I just would mention that Mike Burns was not invited to this. I just texted him to find out if he was available to discuss any transportation. I'm happy to discuss the transportation, but it's always good to include, and I just made Allie aware of that. So when we're discussing DPW/transportation in the future, it'd be great to make sure we include them.
Yeah, so what I just asked then, did he get back to you, or?
He hasn't texted me back, so
Okay,
he's actually in a traffic safety meeting.
Is he? I think they just wrapped up, so what I would suggest is, yeah, let's proceed that way. We apologize for the oversight.
No problem. Not a problem. I'm happy to talk about it. If there's additional questions that I am unable to answer, then I'm happy to hold those until we can get Mike together.
That sounds good.
Okay.
That sounds good.
So I guess I will go in order of the outstanding items. We have just received a revised proposal for GIS data integration from People GIS. I've been working with them for about a month. They came out, did a training on some existing GIS platform that we have, and looking to expand that to include facilities and fleet. So they sent to me the proposal last night. I need to review that before it becomes final. But suffice to say that it appears that the investment will likely be under the 50,000 threshold. So I think we could likely move on. But I'll have to we'll double check that before we commit to that.
Okay, so we'll know to potentially move to operating.
Yes. It also crosses thresholds into sewer enterprise. Before sewer split, the GIS platform base support system was shared by, at the time, DPW. Sewer has split, and they are still using that platform. So there is a little bit of overlap there. Not that it really matters from a capital standpoint, but we're still working to fund that appropriately. So moving on to facilities, I did forward the facilities manager's summary that indicates that shows the at least the fiscal 19 plan. And that was the comprehensive list, fixed assets. And it isn't the new Public Works Deputy Director for Facilities is expected to begin December 5th. And a combination of he coming on and our expansion of our GIS capabilities into a pilot for facilities. I expect that we would have a far better breakdown for the committee next year that will include, again, projects that have been funded, not specifically, but with the general monies set aside for the current fiscal year. We'll have a better sense of where this is going to be going.
That would be an appropriate expectation.
Public Works Facility update. Brian has advertised the OPM RFP, and we are confirming that that project is expected to be a 21 project. So that actually is the same. The same goes for the OPM services for the Belvedere Fieldhouse, which was previously approved. That's on the books now for $700,000. So that we finally got that approved by the land bank, which was part of their master plan for the entire property at Belvedere. So it allowed us to move forward with the project. So that's going forward. We haven't signed up an OPM yet, but the RFP is out. As far as the Public Works list, we have been working on quotes for the utility van. It was in your last, and I actually just got an update from the Central Fleet Manager. The original quote that I had sent over was for the crane body itself, not the chassis. So I have a revised number. It's 192 without any contingency. So I need to update the SIP request form. That's for this field response truck. I was sharing with some of the members before the meeting started. The point there is Mike's coming in now. The point of the field service vehicle was just that, to be able to deal with vehicles that need service in the field. Right now, there is no on-island heavy wrecker. If anything needs to get towed back to DPW, it's kind of interesting.
No,
so
don't be buying one of them. The big wrecker. There actually is one on Nantucket, you know. Well, nobody uses it.
Yeah. So we're going to have the capability to do it appropriately without getting into a massive heavy wrecker. So this the field service response vehicle will be outfitted to be able to do some of those.
The flat towing, the big rope. There's ways of doing it.
Oh, yeah.
It just depends on what happened to the vehicle. If they have air, brakes, engine's got to be running.
Yeah.
Certain things can happen. Yeah.
The CCTV Phase 2, we updated the SIP request form. I think that was just a copy error from a previous form. That RFP for this current year is out. There were some questions, and I believe the opening is going to be, the schedule of that's going to be extended into the end of the month. So we should have a contract together for the current year CCTV efforts, which is combined again with sewer and then stormwater. Should be signed up by beginning of the calendar year. So we'll have a better idea of what pricing is again for this next year. And then Mike, thanks for coming. Transportation-wise, I do have an updated 2FG expected limit of work that was highlighted here. I just got it, so we'll provide that to the committee as well. It's approximately 6,300 square feet.
Thank you.
Yep. Sidewalk improvement plan. We attached the cost estimates spreadsheet for that and a current graphic for the sidewalk improvement program. that included an update of pieces that we have recently accomplished, stuff that we're currently working on, and what is sort of on the immediate need list. We've had some special requests now that people see progress. And I will say part of the challenge is managing the phasing so that people understand that we're progressing in a logical step approach, but sometimes other things come up. So we have recently taken on within the department an improvement project out in front of Athenaeum, again, to provide, let's say, more timely, improved surface from the handicap parking to the handicap accessible gate and into the building to accommodate some needs there that would not be accommodated by the project until some years out. Same thing for Upper Main Street. We've been talking with the folks at Upper Main Street, specifically taking that piece out of order because, looking at a projection, we're talking probably literally 10 years before we would get there, based on the pace coming out of town from Straight Wharf out. And to me, that's just unacceptable considering the condition of the top of Main Street. So the hope is that we are going to accelerate that piece. There's another one that appeared on the plan here, which was Judith Chase Lane, which again seems kind of random, but it's in order for us to complete the roadway reconstruction, the sidewalk work would have to be done first. So that stretch there, there's a number of those cross streets between Fair and Pleasant have been improved over time, but Judith Chase happens to have a sidewalk there. None of the other crossroads did, so they were milled and overlaid or reconstructed without delay. Judith Chase was kind of left on its own. It really needs to be reconstructed, and it has a sidewalk, and so the sidewalk is going to be done so that the roadway can be done.
Go ahead, Chris. Does it run the whole length, or is it? It
does.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm new to it, so I walked it and listened to the abutters there, but there's pieces of it that are sort of overgrown, and it's one of those that are so low traffic that you use the road to walk in most often, but it does need to be
I did a
replaced.
Walk through there. What's your timeline on the Judith Chase and Upper Main generally? Are you thinking before winter or spring? What are you...
Well, so they're very different.
Yeah.
I would say Judith Chase is sort of a opportunistic approach because we can sort of get in there and take it over. And I think it's one of those, even in sort of poor weather, we could go in and shut the road down and get the work banged out rather quickly, as opposed to Upper Main is going to take a lot more. I mean, Upper Main is being dealt with very differently in that it is clear, it is just an uplift of all the existing materials, improving the foundation, and then putting back exactly what we're taking out, with some very limited exceptions where there's concrete and other, let's say, non-historic type of finishes that have shown up over the years. That's still taking a lot of outreach time. So we're hoping to work through there. It's all going to be dependent on the contractor. Victor's, he's got one crew. He's probably going to get a second crew in soon. But even finishing Straight Wharf is a challenge based on its proximity to the truck route. That whole intersection with Easy, Kendall, and Main at Straight Wharf it's been challenging just to handle traffic through there.
Okay. Thank you.
But we're still making progress, which is nice. Surfside area roadway reconstruction. That's Lovers Lane, Okara, and Nantucket. We have completed the conceptual design phase. We're negotiating a contract with the engineer currently, and I expect to have that signed up before the end of the calendar year. We've made really excellent progress with public input and some really good ideas from the neighborhoods that have been involved, including multi-use path through the state forest along its existing route that was, let's say, kind of a go path through the woods that I was oblivious to that came to light. So that's good stuff. Camp Richard, very supportive of having the multi-use path come through their property. So I've been meeting with those folks as well. And airport and residents along Okawa and Montahanset have been very supportive.
Rob, on that, were you able to get some, I will admit, we're just getting the packet, haven't looked at every single page. Did you get us, and I just want to say, I anticipate just for our membership, we'll have clearly an opportunity to look through these before we do our rankings of relative importance, review it, and then if we have any questions, we can follow up either through staff or at a meeting. But just along those lines, in terms of complete information, did we have total funding to date on the Surfside area roads reconstruction? That was one of the open items.
So Mike could give you a breakdown, but there should be a cost estimate spreadsheet attached to that. I can dig it out and just take a look.
No, if it's there, it's there. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure so that if
I think it's important, just if you would.
Oh, please, if you want to talk about it.
I think it would be helpful just to actually refresh my memory.
You're talking funding to date for all of those improvements to the boulevard, or just going forward?
We were looking for total funding to date, just to get a handle on it. It's about, I'd say 20 pages in, now that I see it. It's I
know it was initially
2 or 3 more pages.
Total funding is in excess of $3.5 million.
There it is. It's the right after.
The fire systems.
Right after the cisterns.
If you're at the colorful sidewalk map, you're too far. By at least 12 pages.
So in a nutshell, it's to construct a roadway and multi-use path, boulevard, Lovers Lane, Okawa. Lovers Lane, Okawa, Montahanset, from Boulevard to Old South Road and to the multi-use path that exists at the airport currently.
You mean Airport Road?
Airport
That's
Road.
what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's ultimately the same layout as Boulevard was constructed with, 2 11-foot lanes. It's bituminous Cape Cod berm, both sides, to contain and treat the water from the roadway. And then the multi-use path will deviate from the roadway as far as possible to sort of provide a more pulpous road type path, a more rural path as possible. So where the right-of-way is a big challenge because we have what I would call adequate right-of-way along Lovers Lane. Even with the adequate right-of-way, the challenge there, if we want to get into the weeds, I know I'm getting a little bit into the weeds here, but the roadway is largely to the Camp Richard and State Forest sides to the west already. And so moving it to the east would be sort of really in people's front yards, even though it's town right-of-way. The point is, by having a path that already exists through the state forest, if we sort of hold people's edge of forest on the east and develop all the way to the far west for just the roadway, And if we're able to put the path through the state forest in Camp Richard, that really helps maintain that buffer to the houses, and we're improving drainage. So that's a home run. Okra, Mount Hanson.
May I ask, just on the bike path
Sure.
portion, is the multi-use, is there a permitting element that's been undertaken or will be coming up for the state forest portion? You said if you could, I just was.
Yeah, that's a big ask. I think it'll be supported, but it's a permitting issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okra, Mount Hanson, very different because the right-of-way is severely different. It's only 40 feet and was fairly recently taken. And so we're talking about a 39-foot minimum disturbance envelope, and that's with the two 11-foot lanes, basically a 5-foot separation between the path and the roadway to put at least split rail fence in. So the 39 feet in a 40-foot right-of-way, we're talking about some pretty serious concerns and disturbances along Okawa and Montahanset, including some very tight existing radii. So the plan was to, again, deviate the path where we can, where the houses are sufficiently away from the road. So there's expected to be a fair amount of takings along those paths. In keeping with current vegetation management plans, our designs are now being informed with this new vegetation management approach, which is essentially a 10-foot clear shoulder from the edge of roadway pavement and a minimum 5-foot clear shoulder from the edge of the bike path pavement. So it's a fairly large envelope when we look at it, and it allows us to continue to do vegetation management in the future without having to get permissions from landowners. We'll have those permanently in the plan.
Mm-hmm. And may I ask, Mike, you'll have color-coded maps and such for this project for town meeting?
Well, it's project.
Yeah,
we do have a project map, a project area map on this.
Yeah, it just
what details are you looking for?
Well, just the general layout of the not like granularity of,
Sure,
but just maybe something color coded that shows where the bike paths will be.
Oh yeah, we have a concept plan already on the website. So the concept plan's already been. We've done a number of public information sessions, and we got a lot of input from the neighbors. So we're working through a lot of the, let's say, preliminary details right now. We're negotiating some preliminary locations for drainage easements, for instance. We're talking about, again, where the path may or may not be able to meander through, and that will come for, in the let's say the next phase of design. And this is a little bit different approach in that in the past there's been, hey, we want to go do, let's say, Boulevard. It's going to cost us an estimated whatever, and then my understanding is we've come back in for supplementals. I think the different approach here is to start by talking to the neighbors with an idea of what we'd like to do, starting with a chunk of change, and then as the project continues, doing it in sort of a phased approach to really manage the amounts that we're asking the engineers to move forward with. By doing that, we've seen already the cost substantially been managed a lot better because the engineer has a more finite scope. So,
thank you for that.
So the breakdown there behind the SIP request was provided by Mike. 6.2 cost for the length that's there for the 3 stretches, just over 12,000 feet. We're talking about a estimated cost per foot. Keep in mind, this is there's virtually no utilities except for drainage. Water, sewer limitations are where they are. They're not being expanded or extended as part of this project. The one thing that I would say is sort of the wild card right now is the existing underground electric and telephone. It is a real situation on Okawa where the cabinets and the lines feeding them are exposed. So they will have to be relocated, or and I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet, and what kind of participation any of the utilities would be interested in, let's say, volunteering. So we haven't had that conversation yet, and I think it's going to take, because the concept plan has only been plan view alignment work. We're going to be getting into, now we're taking the next step, we're going to start getting into profile work, and when the profile work starts, then we'll be able to really truly understand what some potential impacts to the existing utilities will be, so we can have realistic conversations with the utility companies. So the plan is to get the design complete for construction by spring. Still a lot of work to be done. So right now we're looking at the breakdown there, about another 500 for design. Land acquisition is really just an estimate based on potential easements along the corridor, and design. The approach was 14% of the expected construction budget. So the supplemental for 20 was 294.
The SIP indicates an expenditure of 3.8 million in fiscal year 20, but this sheet says 6.
So they didn't send an updated SIP request forms to us. So
got it. Okay.
That's they send only backup with any notations on changes to us.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But I can also tell you something, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That there has been to the to Boulevard area, there's been 3 million already allocated.
So we'll get what we're working on in our final summary spreadsheet is the common total funding year to date.
And total expenses
total funding to date.
We're going to probably put total expenses in there too.
That'd be great.
Expenditure, so you
So
can.
when we sit down to do our Rory, we'll have that background information just to discuss if we need to.
So there's actually, and then
it doesn't affect that. I'm not suggesting it's affect the outcome or a recommendation. It's just to have a complete picture, and then we have it in years going forward too.
Yes.
But it doesn't
Yeah,
go to town meeting, does it? Because they already have enough.
Well, this is additional. I mean, my understanding is this is an ask for additional funding.
Is it?
right, because so what happened was at the 18 town meeting there was, or in 17 for an allocation in 18, there was 2 prior allocations of $1 million each. We allocated another $1 million, which got us to $3 million.
Yes.
But at the special town meeting, we reduced that allocation to 500 to the 534 because we reappropriated some of it for the NISDA property down in Washington.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
originally this was supposed to be 3.8. These new estimates put it at 6.2 total. So this actually has to go up, and the SIP request form needs to be changed to about, just really quickly, 5.7 million to get to 6.2.
And keep in mind that the big driver there, besides the reallocation for the NISDA purchase, is the addition of Lover's Lane. This was a Oklahoma Monty
Okay,
Hanson
so
project.
Lover's Lane is part of this now.
Lover's Lane has been added.
Oh, that's a bargain then.
simply
I was like,
because-
wow, that's a lot of money to go up for just what we've been talking about
Yeah.
since like 1990.
No, we're adding the entire thing.
And that's
At least been that long.
it's a good point.
All right, so I'm just ask one more question. It's just, so are we gonna have to go to town meeting this April for?
Yeah, because right now you have $534,000 to spend in that area.
You're going to need 5.7.
So you're going to need 5.7.
So we could get blown up again. Are we gonna have to go to the ballot box after that?
More than likely, a project of that magnitude is going to be recommended to
Yeah.
be a debt exclusion.
Right?
We can't assume
No,
that
I'm just
level of
curious.
debt service
I
in the
thought,
operating budget.
so then the follow-up is, can we do Ottawa, you said spring, so asking kind of a backwards question. Ocklawaha, Monahans can get done even with, in other words, we need town meeting technically.
So here's what I'll tell you. Is,
technically.
Yeah, so this project is very likely to be phased. There's no way.
No.
We're going to
Lovers is
to
a
get
whole nother,
everything blown up.
that's like the big
But
dig.
Lovers
it
Lane
is.
would have to go first, in my estimation, because Lovers Lane gets done and then becomes the construction corridor for detour traffic when you do.
I know, you're right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and you're not going to send detour traffic down Lovers Lane.
Right.
So then, we'll talk outside the meeting about some other questions I have about Lovers Lane. I'm talking about the neighbors, the complaining, the drainage. Is everybody like, okay down there?
Very supportive.
Just to be clear.
Okay, because I talked to a couple that are, but I'm talking to everybody.
Just
Scary.
Just to be clear, Nat, you'll talk to Rob.
Yes, that's what I mean.
I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah. Because I this is different. Lovers is like a brand new idea still compared to the rest of this. Just being clear.
Okay. No, that's.
I'm
important stuff.
excited about it. I'm just saying it's a different animal.
We can't tell.
All right. That's helpful information. And that's where I thought the concept stuff would come in handy, is because it's a project that's been going on and on and on, and you may even find that partitioning out the Lovers Lane as a completely different project with respect to, even though they're coordinated together and they're integral to one another with respect to presentation to the community. So they have an understanding instead of it just seems like this project that never ends and that the dollar number keeps running. That's up to you all to decide. I just mention it as a citizen who's looked at these issues and voted on these issues and I'm concerned about them.
So, to that, I appreciate where you're coming from. I think for the most part, with all due respect to the community, most of the people who are involved with the project, let's say the neighbors and other abutters nearby, have all been
You've reached out to them.
quite involved with the public information session, starting with the Surfside Association this summer, and then so a lot of summer residents, and then since then 2 meetings with just year-round residents, and we're doing a significant amount of outreach and ongoing website updates as they happen, and also individual meetings with a lot of the abutters that are going to have direct effects or are looking for to help out with drainage easements and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on, if there's no other questions on that, roadway improvements, maintenance, the intended work list for fiscal 20. So we have just completed the paving efforts for 19. You've seen Cliff Road and just some smaller Cliff Road and Jefferson, Maury Lane, and Hummock Pond. We just signed a contract with our pavement management engineer, who's going to be updating the pavement management plan that hasn't been done since 15. Mm-hmm. So the intent is we're going to be updating that plan annually moving forward. And so we'll be not only adding in the projects that we just completed, but they're going to be coming in with a machine that's going to automate the process and be able to do the pavement indexing, the condition indexing, with a far more automated process.
Rob, how rigorous do you anticipate that will inform your actual schedule? Are there other, clearly if you've got sewer work going on, well, I guess if you have sewer work going on and road work being done, that comes out of that appropriation. So this would be annual maintenance. So this indexing is going to really drive the work or no?
It will be, a driver.
There's a lot of plans and sometimes they go on a shelf, and I don't take you as the type of person who spends money on a plan and puts on a shelf, but I'm just trying to understand.
Oh, yeah, no, so there's a difference between prioritizing based on condition.
Yeah.
And then actual prioritization based on what else is happening.
Mhm.
So there's multiple drivers here, and a lot of it's going to be programmed utility work. Most of the stuff that we held off on and sort of reallocated to, let's say, lesser priority projects this year. Cliff, the section of Cliff we did specifically, because there's the other pieces of Cliff that are going to see water improvements and sewer improvements and drainage improvements in the near future. Humming Pond was another one that was on the list, but it was not the highest level of priority. The highest level of priorities had conflicts with other utilities, so they were being held off until those projects are programmed.
So this will inform your decisions, but and identify any potential hotspots. But it's not. I mean, our expectation shouldn't be that we have a list and that's.
Yeah, it's not hard to fix.
Yeah, I'm just making it clear where we are.
Sure.
And then when I know we're trying to wring this list out of you, but when would we have it?
We should have it by the end of January.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Chrissy.
Some of these, the area-wide maintenance, road improvements, some of the cobblestone, the fairgrounds, road work, all has a anticipated useful life of 20 years on each one on the SIPs. Is that like a standard, or is that, what's that based on? Is that,
Yes. So it's based on an industry standard. Trying to shoot for a 20-year life for any roadway improvements that we do.
Cobblestone also?
That's
just a guess.
That is definitely a guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depends what the base is.
Yeah.
Somebody.
So I was going to say we definitely should go there because we are part of the resistance to Upper Main Street sidewalk is more to cobblestone repairs than it is for the sidewalk work, and part of that is an argument over what is that going to look like. So again, I sort of glossed through saying lifting everything, doing foundational repairs, and then putting all the materials back. Part of that means taking a look at what that foundation ought to look like. So we're working with our engineer partners who's been doing all the oversight work for the sidewalk improvements, Stantec, who's also got a client in Portland, Maine, that has done restorative work to their old town cobblestones to get some ideas of what has worked, what hasn't worked for full reconstruction box areas. And then our intent is to construct that in a test strip on the DPW driveway so that we'll actually be able to see performance before the cobblestone work on Main Street is brought to bear. So, again, some people are listening to that and some people are just, screaming about paving under the cobbles. So we don't know what that's going to look like. We've kicked ideas around, and we told people that we are planning on doing a test strip or two to figure out what long-term is going to be a recommendation.
So the heavy equipment's going to be testing this?
Yep.
Rob, just on the annual maintenance of paving before we move on, how much of that do you anticipate we're actually going to be logistically be able to accomplish? Just mobilization. If you get the funding, you're going to be able to do it all?
I'm confident. We've got the attention of our contractor, and I think we could do. I'm comfortable with $3 or $4 million in paving a year.
Okay. Just have asked. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that brings us to cobblestones. I think we just were looking at the CRF be revised. It went in. It was just, I think, a glitch in the software. It went in under a fire cistern or something like that with the same project summary and description. I believe the dollar numbers were correct. So that I don't know that there's any additional. Oh, let's see. So this is cobblestone maintenance. This request is for road improvements as per MacTech pavement management report and the pavement management study recently completed by Data Group.
So, yeah, so we put 500,000 in. So the point with the cobblestones is
Yeah.
what we tried to do is break down, instead of simply looking at a general umbrella of roadway repairs, we wanted to raise awareness to everybody reading this, bless you, that we have a number of different surface types that will likely have their own repair plan, from the gravel roads that we're grading to the cobblestone areas, which include Belgian block. It's sort of improved, but other than gravel or asphalt, so that we have funding that's specific to those, to keep people's eyes on the prize, to make sure that we do have the latitude to go into those areas and address those as necessary.
So these, the concept here is that these forms are going to be uploaded into our new capital database, which will then expand into project management tracking and procurement, so on and so forth. So maybe not this particular project, and maybe I'm speaking a little optimistic about when it will happen. But I think we appreciate that description. If we could just get the project summary for the SIP request form updated to reflect it, okay, that would be really, this has just got a different, it's a different description. It's the roadway maintenance description. Again, I think it was just a software. And that brings us to fairgrounds, which was a, we're just looking for backup on that, right? Which you provided a great breakdown on. Was there any questions anyone had on fairgrounds, other than?
Selfish question. What do you think timetable wise for Wake Drive? Spring?
I would say that the expectation is that the design for Wake Drive is completed before Christmas. It could be, should be up to date by early calendar year.
So do you think?
Without any other delays. So it's possible. I think that it's possible that it could be a spring project. I'm not sure what else is in the queue. I know that there's a milestone, a state project for milestone. I'm not sure what the schedule on that is, but I know there's a lot of people waiting.
Any other questions on the Fairgrounds Road area, which is actually the Fairgrounds area road area project is the Amelia Driveway Drive and the two Fairgrounds driveways.
Right.
2FG.
Rob, is it appropriate for me to ask a question about Wake Drive in this meeting? No.
Oh yeah.
Is it okay if I ask? What are we doing there? That is another one of these, again, part of the new, what you're seeing now, people angry, we want to stop everything. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't come to some of those meetings, so I've been at every one.
I
know what it is.
Roughly 1,200 foot, dead
we've got it figured out how to meander it in to get through to
right now, there's a concept that shows a throughway through the parking lot to Old South, and with the potential to add a leg to Amelia.
That's been discussed at planning from the Park Place. Just as I think it was the Park Place or one of the other ones. Whatever, they're all Park Places now. So everybody, thinks they are. So, because that was something that I didn't know was getting done because it's been discussed, but it never got.
That's still conceptual.
Conceptual. Okay,
the
good.
actual construction project would be a.
There is a spot there that could be a leg.
That's correct.
You know where that is. Okay. So the other question is, is this is two-way, right? Or is it one-way towards Milestone? I mean,
Wait Drive is two-way.
you know what I mean?
Wait Drive's
Old
two-way,
South.
all the way through.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't
No
sure.
parking on one side, angled parking on the other.
Angle?
No angle. No, it's perpendicular.
See, I know, that was why I wanted to ask you. You really sure you want to do that?
I am.
We'll get blamed. You won't. Paving.
That's why
How
you do it.
wide? How wide? Paving, that's gonna look like runway 33. Yeah, that's a lot of paving to do that.
It's minimum 11 foot based on the fire chief's input. 11-foot lanes. And then the park.
I mean, okay. I think it should be angled, personally. It makes it very easy to park, easy to back out. You don't have to be a Class A driver, because you know how that is.
Yeah.
You know, people don't know how to park very.
I just
that
saw
way.
back-in parking. And
Backing in's great if you can drive, all right?
back-in angle parking.
Oh, back in angle parking.
Yeah.
That's good. So, I mean, the overall paved width is going to be, to do that, is going to be about 50-something feet.
That is 20...
2 plus 22, 45, 46.
42.
Just, could it be changed to angle later, the same width? If it doesn't work? When I say doesn't work, I don't mean that it can't work. I mean complaining,
Yeah, I get you.
whining, this is stupid. You gotta do it right.
Well, the angle will
We're
work.
getting blamed for Amelia, and that was in the 80s.
Now, the angle will work if you pull in, if you're just doing straight in parking, the angle's gonna work. It's just a matter of whether lines go down or not. So
Right.
if they're planning for
So
straight
the
in.
width is the same if we do angle or
I'm not sure how to gauge
90
success of
degree.
the project if you don't hear whining and angry yelling.
Welcome to Nantucket.
But I know that angle will work without whining, because it will work. The other way is difficult to
What's
park.
The only gain to angled is just to narrow up the spaces. You have more. I think it'll work. You got to get parking coming in from multiple angles. I think the whole thought of angling was when there was a discussion about making one way.
Yeah, one way. So wait, let me just stop. Let me
I'm not gonna.
put the brakes on this just for a minute. Rob, what's the timeline on that? I know you just mentioned to Richard, but do you think that's going to happen within the year?
If it happens this year, it would be spring.
Okay, so Nat, you got some time to lobby. Okay.
I'm not trying to. Look,
No, I just.
I pick my battles. We'll be talking about some of the other stuff later. But this one here is just, I'm concerned about it being like parking lot versus simpler. That's all. Okay.
I think I mean, again, the draft construction plan should be out before Thanksgiving.
Is Leo working on this?
Yep.
Okay, because I know he did an
Yeah,
angle.
we expect to have it Monday.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool.
So that's another thing you might talk to Rob outside of the meeting on individually. All right, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump to I think we were just looking for the cost breakdown. The town was going to have a.
I'm going to let Mike answer that, Mr. Chairman.
This is the coolest thing in
Mike,
the world.
I'll let Mike address that one.
Yes, please. So that was previously in your packet. In terms of the SIP request form, it was a little earlier on.
There's also there's some updates and changes to that, and Mike's made some progress with actual grant funding.
Okay.
Yeah, the committee should know that I was approached by Fisheries and Wildlife about a second grant for the value of it is $1 million, and it would be used to implement a portion of this project. Again, it requires matching funds, 20%, so the $1 million would represent 80% of the total value. The town's matching funds would be $250,000. So, Rob, I'm gonna ask for help, because I can't do the math in my head, and I don't have the paper in front of me. They asked us to increase the, I believe it's $80,000 that was originally asked, increase that by 250,000, so that we can match the construction funds.
By or to? So 330, or will it be 250?
No, 330.
Yeah, we have 300.
So the ask will be 330K in order to facilitate the match on the Fisheries and Wildlife $1 million.
Correct, and it would expand the scope from not just design, but design and a portion of construction, what we're calling phase 1 construction.
And I just want to be clear, because my information isn't tracking, and if there's I want to make sure. So we're talking about the Walwinet Road shared use path?
Correct.
And the spreadsheet I have indicates a cost. The SIP is 80, which which we understand is 330, and the reason why. However, the spreadsheet indicates 500.
Yeah, that's just that was the wrong.
That's a different multi-use path. I got you.
That's just for maintenance.
Okay.
That's not this project.
Okay. So disregard that particular spreadsheet, and the numbers that we just discussed prevail. Okay. Do you guys have any questions on that? Comments, concerns? Okay. Thank you, guys. Decommissioning fire cisterns.
Yes, that's basically the list that we currently have from the fire department. That goes back to 2012, and this is essentially finding, confirming location, making sure we don't have anything else in there of note, and then filling them.
Yeah. We know where the systems are, but we don't know where the drainage is in Aqua.
Oh, so the Sanborn maps were they helpful at all?
They were.
Do they show it? That's interesting. I was wondering about
they're
that.
They're fire maps. They should.
I know, but doesn't mean that, you know. No,
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that you would think that.
I've only seen one physically, so you know these are good maps to start from. It's a matter of physically uncovering them and then exploring.
Just because it's on this map doesn't mean it's under the ground.
And then I've also seen other utilities run through them in the past. You know, if they're abandoned and people just run a pipe through it, and so it's not just as easy as opening and
filling with concrete.
Filling, like you really want to take a look at what's in there. You might still need access to and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you still have pipes leading from buildings into these that would keep them full, and sometimes you still have exiting pipes that would serve as overflows into a drain system or two. So it's not as easy as just popping and going.
And you're comfortable with the 60 ask and then just carrying it out for a couple of years to see where this ends up?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We have next the more of this is a finance side, Brian, for our, if I may, we'll need the special town meeting appropriation requests carried forward to our summary spreadsheet. Okay. And then it will just be more of a technical thing of re-ranking.
You mean for the Old South and Milestone?
Yeah, to the extent they're going to be brought forward. And that'll be something that Robin might, I mean, to the extent they need to, if that's going to be changed, but otherwise we're good. Okay, good. So that moves us on to DPW solid waste. And the facility access, really all we were looking for was a map, so you might say, yep, it's this part and that part. And we have the site map, the site plan. And I guess the question is just, is it, you're anticipating it's the full length of the blued area up to the
facility? Essentially, it's just beyond the scale, all the way out to the street. And that includes a widening from the access gate back to Nantucket. In keeping with the newly created access scale lane that we recently widened.
But are we keeping it, we're in England for 5 minutes? Driving on the left still, or no?
The circulation?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing will change there. All we're talking about
is like we're kind of in England there for
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
surprised we haven't had a little bit of a close head
We're
on
used to it.
somewhere. Just get used to it, huh? Okay.
As Rob said,
I just want roundabouts.
As Rob said, he's not sure how to measure the success of a project. That's just a whining. I've got feedback 50-50, you know, some people really love it, some don't, but it seems to be working.
It works.
And
That
that's
was for the
important.
scale issue.
It works very well.
Yeah.
The backup to the scale issue, this fixes.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. It's just that you sort of have to like think quickly when you start driving the wrong way because you're so used to it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I mean, I think it's fine. I'm just saying you're in England for a couple feet. You know, that's all. You don't have much to work with out there.
Now that we're back in America, any other questions? Now?
Just,
Yep.
are we gonna get the intermodal transportation center and
Not till we.
is it, it's on?
That's just an out year.
That's an out-year
folder.
discussion.
Yeah, okay.
We haven't had a meeting with those.
So we're
people in a
gonna
while.
go through solid waste, then we're gonna hit finance. No, we're gonna go through solid waste and then we'll discuss out years. Because that's the end, and then we'll get into police marine. So facility access for radiation monitor verified. This is an FY20 request. So just some backup.
Yep, so at this point, I think it's gonna be a 21 request because it's gonna really require us to take a look at the pavement reconfiguration and that whole throat, because it's gonna require us to take a look at how we're gonna get the monitors to fit that throat. So it would be a 21 push out right now.
And this is to monitor the waste stream incoming. Is that right?
It is.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood. Okay, great. And then capping, we wanted to verify the FY20, if FY20, and so we had a range of costs that you were uncomfortable with. That was 8.2 million to 14 million, and there was perhaps some variability in the scope. Are you prepared to give us an update on that?
Sadly, the only update is that we have signed up an engineering contract to do this analysis for us for the cost of capping. We have been patiently, now impatiently waiting from our friends at Waste Options to provide us with the base mapping to conduct the study. I was told as late as last night that I would get the CAD file that we've been waiting for today, and that will put our engineers up against the wall to really go at it. And trust me, we're waiting from a budgeting standpoint as well as a permitting standpoint. So there's a lot of unanswered questions with regard to continuation of mining and/or moving forward into capping, and we need to answer those a month ago.
And are you on a hard, with the state, are you on a hard deadline, so we should be anticipating some amount of an ask on this for FY20, or is this something that, with respect to the state, could carry over FY21?
I think it's unrealistic to expect that the capping could occur physically in a calendar year.
Oh, yeah. No, I just meant in terms of the original appropriation.
It doesn't depend on the mining program.
It does depend on the mining program. There is going to be a tremendous amount of earthwork, whether it's termed mining or capping.
Yeah.
We don't quite have a handle on yet. And frankly, to your point, capping costs have been discussed at levels varying from 8 to 14 million. Mm-hmm. And frankly, that's way too much of a variance for me to be comfortable with. So that's where we're trying to get some harder numbers for you.
I think you'll find kindred spirits in this committee with that. So I guess the other way, if I may ask a different way, is there a mandate to act in FY20 on this from the state? So we should anticipate some
currently
funding
yes.
requests?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it does depend, correct me if I'm wrong, on whether we can continue the mining program or not.
That's exactly correct.
So as we work through it, I would expect that we would plan for a number to go to ATM with capping if we are required to.
Yeah. Right now we're throwing it out as yes, we're capping and yes, we're mining. So until we have a better understanding of both, we're kind of trying to hold a place for both.
Okay. And the reason I ask is, we have a report to prepare, so I need to be
absolutely. And it's a good question to ask.
I
think that our path to concur with the DPW director is that we'd have a number in there for capping, whether it's all of it or a number to begin the process while we sort through the mining.
Okay, thank you.
What my recommendation would be.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful from both of you.
And this kind of late ticket to the show here is the replace the scale. Annually, there's a off-island independent folk that come out to do scale assessment. They came out this past month and a half ago and made some. They were able to certify the scale, but they also made recommendations that the scale has seen its useful life. And it was interesting that it was not noted in last year's report. So it either has been given a thorough examination this time around, or had somehow accelerated its degradation to the point where it was noticed to be replaced. So I know they were out last week doing a full inspection to do a proposal for a write-up for replacement. I don't have that yet, but as soon as Waste Options gets that to me, we'll pass that on to finance. So we want to carry something there.
So that was one of the ones you mentioned would be a new at the table today.
Yeah.
Scale. Okay.
And I'm throwing 100 at it just to be for a placeholder until I get firm numbers on it.
Okay. So we'll need to carry that, and then we'll need to carry it and plan it.
Well, yeah, and we'll need a SIP request form to go through, but yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there other on solid waste?
No.
And there's nothing else in transportation. So we're just going to jump over to out years if there's questions. Rob, I guess I don't want to make this any longer than it needs to be. If there's anything that's changed dramatically from last time you saw us, and then if you want to hit those, if not,
What about intermodal? Like you want to
we'll
speak
just ask what jump right into the questions on what we have.
Is that moving it out from fiscal 20, or is it? Do you know, Mike?
I don't know.
Most likely.
No.
Then we'll reconfirm.
That
where it's supposed to be.
When we met,
I
we
thought
had
it was
our
moving
capital
out,
was
but
moving
it's
out
moving out. Okay.
from Libby's
Okay.
comments.
We'll confirm with the town manager this afternoon what year to move that to. Yeah.
Just to recap, the discussion there, and correct me if you think I'm veering off here, was that it's not that it doesn't need to be done sooner rather than later if it's going to be done. It's that there are
a lot of moving
parts and a lot of different moving parties, and that's why it's not something that's on our table at the moment. But that doesn't mean it's just being pushed off, because it's integral to other planning that's going on in the area, correct? Okay.
So we'll confirm the date and the fiscal year we should consider moving it to.
And then if it's FY20, we need to schedule an actual presentation with discussion, so that we've been having an opportunity to properly understand what it is we're making a recommendation on. Is that okay with you guys?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So any other questions on out years? If we always know where to find Rob. So we appreciate you guys pulling this together and coming in. We've got a couple little details to follow up with some different request forms and some changes, which we'll be doing so we can be moving on with our own process. And we'll go from there. All right, so thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, guys, so next we have Police Marine.
Yep, they're all the way to that.
Airport's right after DPW packet, so Police Marine will be after that.
Okay, so before we get into, I just want to touch on that. So airport, we had some questions on the airport with respect to not that they needed to come in. The recap was anything that was presented at the special town meeting needs to be put back in for the FY20 ATM that is going to be asked to be appropriated or asked to be authorized. The out years were going to be corrected in Planet, and we will see the result in our final summary sheet when we sit down to do the review and the ranking.
Yeah, so the SIP request form, the Planet form, Mr. Chairman, was reconciled with the airport yesterday.
Okay.
So FY20 through 29 agrees. On their Excel spreadsheet that they gave you, they went all the way through FY30, but since we're only doing 10 years, the Planet won't show FY30, but Jamie and I have gone through Planet to the Excel sheet, and this all agrees to the way that their Excel sheet that they've sent to you.
Okay.
So solid years, and we did add in fiscal 20 the 2 STM projects.
So thank you. So this is all going to be relevant when we sit down to do our final review. It will make sense to be more useful then than it is now. However, if you had a chance to get through the packet and you have a particular question, and in general, I would just like to say, please go through your packet, and if you have questions that you think are going to need to be answered before we do our final, please get them together and send them to me, and we'll get them addressed through staff. So airport, just to recap, the last thing on that was some of their out years were boiler backup, common counters, fencing the high-speed taxiway, HVAC replacements, the main entry, and parking lane extension. Okay, so that moves us to police marine, and what we were looking for there was there seemed to be a little uncertainty with respect to 53 Low Beach Road as to the actual scope. So we were looking for an update on that, including the request form updated and the backup details. And then I think that's where we were also with the auxiliary storage. That's exactly where we were, is that there were some open questions that Deputy Chief Gibson was looking into. Some of them were outside his control, perhaps. Does that strike a bell for you?
So I know that we submitted or included everything that they sent to us with respect to the safety auxiliary building. There is a memo from him dated October 25th with the, which I believe should, I believe there's a SIP request form, I hope, yeah, it does. Where he has noted with the 3 bids that we received, which were substantially all in excess of the funding that we've had. And then he's provided you with a breakdown of how he came to the total of 2.7 million.
And let me just correct for the record, when I say 53, I should have been referring to 54.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay.
And so, Brian, I guess speaking to the extent you can, this is the number that you all are comfortable with respect to the scope.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that number is changed to 950. Okay. And then that tracks to the Planet. And then the auxiliary storage building.
Yes.
Same. That's the finance and town manager scope of stack with you all.
Yes.
Okay, so the last page is the memo.
I got a question.
Yeah, please, Chris.
So public seasonal housing, building repairs, you had mentioned that they're going to be putting possibly a roof. I just don't think that describes what they're doing.
No, that's the
he didn't even, the question came up, is there anything additional you're doing? That's when he said that, we're going to possibly put on a roof and make it appealing.
The neighbors, the whole thing about the neighbors,
I just it says repairs to concrete walls, exterior windows, door replacements. It says nothing about it says roof improvements, but
Was that definite?
just the project title. Sounds like that's what they were doing.
I thought that was more of a possibility.
I asked him, I said, is there anything additional you're doing other than that's not current? So I got the impression that that's what they're going to build it with.
Right. So let's just have some open discussion on that. I got the impression that there were changes to the presentation, the aesthetic portion of the roof, but there was also some roof repair related stuff as on a flat roof. My concern was that we would just know which it was when we vote a recommendation. I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable. But I don't know which way that fell with what we've been presented.
I just,
Well, we can go back and ask him for more detailed breakdown of what he's looking to do. If you would like to help, that's fine.
Yeah,
no problem doing that.
I don't think we need a lot. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we need a line item breakdown. We're looking for a more descriptive summary, project summary.
Okay. We can ask for some more update on what that consists of,
I mean,
or what they anticipated to consist of. That's fine.
Wasn't that total project gonna be like $5 million?
Well, that's when I'm thinking they took a lot off.
That's what I remember.
I don't remember it being that high, but there was definitely an M after it.
Yeah.
An M. Yeah, there you go. I like that.
I don't need anything else,
That
just to know that.
Well, be clear what the last one.
Yeah, just to, so they need to give us a more detailed description.
And we'll,
I think
we'll
that's
send
what
that back and ask him to do that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then I think that's going to be the exact same situation with the auxiliary storage. Again, they're not looking for a line by line item, by line item description, but we do need a more detailed description. And more detailed is in more than another couple of sentences.
Is that specifically more detail on what the building is going to be used for specifically, or
I think
just so I make sure that when we send them the email, we're asking for the right additional information?
I think it's a very fair question, and insofar as I'm concerned, I want to know what the money's being spent on. And if it's a change in use, then that should be identified, and that doesn't need to be a long thing, just it's going from storage to seasonal housing, it's going from storage to mechanic space. Or a portion of it is, or something like that.
That's what Chief was talking about, right?
Yeah, and that's why Chief Murphy mentioned, so it seemed like, I don't belabor this, but part of what we're doing is making sure everybody's on the same page. So that's
Whose operating budget does
how we do that.
this building come under? Do they split it down the middle?
To be honest with you, since it's not constructed, we haven't actually probably crossed the bridge. I imagine that they would both be carrying some costs for their respective portions of what they have in the building, if there are operating costs other than heat, maybe, or electricity, but a lot of those things come out of a central line item anyway.
Unless does the chief oversee both departments though?
The which chief?
Fire and
No,
which
chief? They know which
oh,
chief.
sorry, Bill.
No, each chief is responsible for their respective departments. So, since it's a joint building, we have to kind of look at what costs would be allocated to each one. It may make sense if the cost splitting them is minimus to put it all in one budget and just manage it that way versus trying to split whatever the small costs are, but that isn't something that we've really delved into now, but we will.
And that naturally will extend to facades and other maintenance on the facility.
I mean, naturally,
have to be worked out.
I mean, it probably will be similar with the fact that the police would request, or the fire department would request the money for the facade or whatever. And if you remember that the police department came in with painting of 4FG after the fire station was done, and that actually was ultimately put in the facilities budget because it's a town-wide facility. So,
Are you seeing that's where that's going, or do you think that
I think that
buildings, because of their nature, may need?
No, I think that if it's a facilities related, regardless of what department it's going to be attached to, is that we're going to try to identify and put it in the right. I mean, our goal is to identify and put these things in the right categories or department columns so that we get an idea and we can be more accurately reflect the cost of maintaining all the facilities in town. I mean, we can do it, but from my perspective, it's easier when I don't have to go through 35 departments and pull out facilities costs when I can have it in one line item regardless of where the location of the dollars is spent. It's certainly easier to talk to this committee or the public about what those costs are. So, we did it last year, and I would assume that moving forward we would do it when we have those costs.
That's the rationale we would support. I think I can speak to us all. Okay, great. So that's helpful there. Are there any other questions that we would have for Libby was going to give us an update on the town pier. She did an update, I believe, at one of our last meetings, but just to see if there was any outstanding matters.
Well, the town pier, and we do have the 2 contracts going on, the wave modeling and the redesign. We're in the process of talking to get OPM services to help with the design review and the bidding review, etc. And then we would be doing the construction services once we go to town meeting and award it. The plan is still to have it bids back, reviewed, and know what the bids are. So at town meeting, we would be able to request the funding, as we had talked about before, and that's still what the track we're on is with that project.
Any questions on the town pier stuff? So we've actually moved through this pretty quickly, which is great.
One thing we'll do, Mr. Chairman,
yeah, please.
is that I do apologize for some of these SIP request forms. When we got all of the stuff back from some of the departments very late, we'll go back through and recalculate the SIP request forms and tie out a plan so that it's all working in conjunction with each other. So I do acknowledge that there were a couple of them that have changed dramatically, and I do apologize for that, but we did get all this stuff relatively late to go through. So,
well, thank you. I mean, I'm hanging hope on the fact that, you know, this is the second year of kind of going through this more comprehensive request form and asking for additional information, but that where we're headed is that there's a comprehensive program in place so that this is systematized, it's automatic, and there's not this type of a late arrival to you, which is a late arrival to us, and the other things that come up with the information not tracking.
And in the new functionality, then when there's additional information needed, it'll be uploaded, which everybody will have access to the online system. So when information is uploaded, we can merely tell you information has been uploaded and is able to be reviewed by project instead of the way we do this right now.
Which I've actually seen it. It's real, it's living, it's work, it's being, you know, it's not Frankenstein being brought to life. There's like a real solid.
There's a Rory form now too, actually.
Yeah, so it's definitely happening. It's just that I think, as Brian may have said at one point earlier on, it's kind of like building a house and you're living in it. So we haven't been able to do nearly what we had hoped, and then we found out earlier, and then we found out that it would just interrupt the process and make it more difficult to try and live stream it midstream. So appreciate you guys hanging in there with us on that. Other than that, I mean, I guess that's the capital database committee report. Is there any other updates, anybody, or comments? Good of the order? We're headed in the right direction. Richard, please.
Can you forecast the coming schedule?
Yeah, that was next. And thank you for I think, well, where we are currently is we should be, at this point, we should have reviewed we should have done a capital project status report. So an update on previous year requests and where they are, and maybe where there were exceptions or different concerns that might inform our decisions on other projects, directly or indirectly, that are being requested this year. We were to have wrapped up outstanding information. This was to have happened November 8th, so we're behind there. And I'm thinking out loud, so bear with me. Today we were to be doing a recap and really digging into our final the Rory summary, so that on Thursday, so that we could be thinking about it over the holiday, and Thursday, November 29th, we would finalize our up-down recommendations in terms of recommendations to town manager. I don't anticipate that we're going to be able to do that without a meeting before then, and I don't know how that looks for everyone. And I don't ask that lightly, but I mean, we're just getting information that we anticipated weeks ago, if not months ago. So, does everyone have Terry Mann?
That's not this year.
Oh.
That's 2014, sorry.
While you're looking at the calendar, I will tell you that the interval is going to be moved to 21.
It is. Okay.
Really good.
So I guess the question is, we have a meeting on the 29th, which is a Thursday. The 26th is the Monday after Thanksgiving week. The 27th is the Tuesday. Do we have does anyone have a conflict with either of those 2 days for a meeting with the intent of trying to get the recommendations discussed so that at the Thursday meeting we could finalize them?
I can't do Monday.
I can't even. Okay. Yeah.
Monday would be very tough if you're looking for.
No, that's fine. I'm just
Okay,
trying. I'm
let
trying
me
to
know.
throw out more than one date. So
Tuesday would be better.
Tuesday.
You
So
need me here.
if I may ask, Ally, if you could get us, if possible, this room for Tuesday, and we would, I think if we did 10:30, just to stick to our normal time and try and wrap up within a couple of hours, we're going to be in good shape.
Can we send you? We'll send you a
We-
preliminary agenda.
Yeah, and we need to meet
Yeah.
before then to get, because the spreadsheet needs to be spick and span by then.
Yeah.
So if I may suggest we meet before then, and
That's fine.
let's work that out after the meeting.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that work for you guys? Okay.
So 10:30 on the 27th, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Tuesday, November 27th.
Okay. In this room, if it's available, since it's
Yeah.
a struggle to get all the other rooms.
At 10:30 a.m. and we will be working on a recap and the overview of the rankings of relative importance. So basically what we had scheduled for November 15th.
Okay.
Okay. Our next meeting then is Tuesday, November 27th at 10:30 a.m. Place to be determined. We hope it to be here. And then we will meet Thursday, November 29th at 10:30 a.m. And that is scheduled to be here also. And that will be to finalize prior to, so that we can start pulling together a report. And we can also get with the ups and downs.
Would that be the 10:30 or 11?
10:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was just the reason I was 11 this week is there was a minor snafu with the posting, so
Okay.
that's why we had to move it back in order to get it.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments? I know we're kind of getting out of the wire here, but just while we're here, no? Richard?
Just a question on when do you present to the finance committee?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to be clear that we present.
You missed it last year.
Yeah.
Thank God he was prepared.
Yeah, I was
Like
kind
the
of,
finance committee?
well, what I found out about it, I was kind of like a deer in the headlights. That I hadn't,
You should have been sitting there.
I had no idea that it was that day.
You should have been sitting there. They were looking
I
at
should have seen it. Peter was great.
He was.
He was.
That's what I heard. By all accounts, Peter just.
Jason and I looked at each other. We talked about deer in the headlights. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Luckily, you jumped in.
We had a good time.
No preparation, too. I was amazed. Very nice job.
I hope to handle it as easily. I hope that the finance committee will treat us as well when we're there as a group. I do suggest that we go. I would like to ask that you guys be present. It's a long list. And when I say present, I'm not referring only to the finance committee, but the board of selectmen. And I know you all have been there and you've supported it, but I just want to be clear that it would be wonderful to be able, if there is a particular question, to be able to refer to one of the liaisons or the liaisons for the department. And I think it's important for finance committee and the select board not to just know that that happens, but to see it in action. They're relying on us in a very meaningful way. And I think if we can demonstrate how we work together, if we need to, then it will be helpful. So anyways, December 19th will be a joint meeting presentation to the select board and the finance committee. That's at 6 p.m. and I believe that will be at, we'll have to work that out. I believe that will be at the select board meeting if it's a Wednesday.
It's at the select board meeting, yes.
Okay, so maybe it will be a little easier on finance. And then I think what we might do is if finance, we could schedule a follow-up with them if they wanted to get in any of the nitty or the gritty. Because I don't think that the schedule was set up with the idea of not meeting with them. It was a focus on when to meet with the select board for their schedule for annual town meeting.
Is David giving you any dates? I asked him.
I don't think we've finalized what's going to happen on what. I mean, we have a framework, I believe, but we haven't finalized what's happening after.
So if we could keep that loosely in mind, at least with respect to the finance committee. And we actually scheduled Wednesday, December 19th at 10:30 a.m. in the community room in case we needed to continue or meet with someone. So we could do that. Has anyone got any questions on the timeline where we're headed?
I just have a few of these to fill out, so.
Yes.
If you haven't filled them out, if you would get them to, Rebecca will be back Monday, but you can give them to either Ally and I today or tomorrow.
I just need help on what I have.
Okay.
Yeah,
we'll go through.
Rebecca said she was.
Actually, what we could do is, why don't we, today and tomorrow, we'll go through, and then we could send out an email to everybody with which ones are open.
missing.
So
That'd be
that we
very
can,
helpful.
that will help out.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we can do that.
And then, guys, I'm gonna have to insist that Brian, we're probably gonna need to meet Monday
That's fine.
next week. That you guys strive to get those in Monday, because it'll be a holiday week and everybody's mind's gonna be wandering. But we need that information for our meeting the following Tuesday. And although it's a week away, it's also Thanksgiving, so people will be traveling and they won't be around.
Can you send the form?
Yeah, and
Stroll.
Yeah, so we'll send out individual emails to everybody with the forms that they're missing. That's
So,
Sure is.
Terry has announced that the meeting is ready to be adjourned, and it's been moved, and that carries unanimously. So thank you, everyone.